Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie is detailing his 17-year-long friendship with Donald Trump in his new memoir. It's called Let Me Finish: Trump, the Kushners, Bannon, New Jersey, and the Power of In-Your-Face Politics.
Mouthful there. Christie writes he went from the vice presidential shortlist to being fired from the transition team 2 days after the election. We spoke to him about why he says the president's son-in-law, that's Jared Kushner, pushed him out.
Well, listen, I think it's always problematic to have family in government. Just as a general rule, whether it was Jared Kushner or whether it was, Bobby Kennedy, I just think it's a problem because there are going to be times in government where you're going to have to fire people. Sometimes because they do something wrong, sometimes because something goes wrong in their department, even if it's not their fault. It's hard to fire a family member when you have to sit with them at Thanksgiving. So I think there's reasons why that's problematic. And also, again, Jared comes from the very same background that the president does, commercial real estate in the New York and New Jersey area. That's a great career, but it's not necessarily preparation for the intricacies of government. I think what happened during this shutdown is an example of where when you don't have the experience of knowing how to deal with people in the other party, how the legislative process really works, what's important in terms of the way to negotiate your way into those things and out of those things, we wind up with the longest shutdown in American history. That doesn't serve anybody well. It didn't serve the president well. It didn't serve the Congress well.
Is it personal between you and Mr. Kushner because of what your prosecution of his father?
It's never been personal to me. I mean, listen, I had a job to do when I was U.S. attorney. His father pled guilty to 18 counts. Pled guilty. And he was guilty of those things. Now, I understand it's his dad, and nobody would like to see their father sent to prison.
Did he ever speak to you about that?
Well, yeah. In the book, we talk extensively. When I was being named chairman of the transition, he interrupted my meeting with the president, with then candidate Trump, and tried to talk him out of it, and used the reason of my prosecution of his father for that. It was a completely inappropriate thing to do. But I will tell you, Donald Trump stood up at that time and just said, no, like, Chris was doing his job. You can't blame him for doing his job. You would have done the same thing if you had his job, because Jared's a lawyer. And he said, and, in the end, I need him to run the transition. But what I was told by Steve Bannon and by others over time was that the beating on me to Donald Trump by his son-in-law continued. I never saw it again after that, but I was told it continued throughout and ultimately led to my termination in charge of the transition a few days after the election.
Let me ask you, at this point now, books about the campaigning and the presidency, it's almost like a cottage industry, right? There have been a number of books out. I was really looking forward to your book because you feature in many of these books. In Bob Woodward's book, he wrote that the president thought you were a jinx because you were you wanted to work on the transition. Karma. Right, yeah. And I wonder just what it must have been like sort of from your point of view, because I think people watched this very robust, outspoken, direct-talking governor who then ran, who then put his support behind President Trump, candidate Trump, and it seemed like your personality changed a little to people on the outside.
I think
and some of these books sort of indicate that.
Well, but if you read my book,
yeah.
I think one of the reasons I was fired was because my personality didn't change. You see in there, I continually told the president that Michael Flynn was a problem. I was independent in running the transition. And the entire time, I've always given, to this day, I give the president my unvarnished opinion about what's going on, what he does, even during this latest shutdown.
He still asks for your opinion?
Yeah, we still talk all the time. And we've been friends for 17 years. So, this was not something where it was a political convenience that I decided after I lost that, well, I'm going to endorse Donald Trump just because, he's winning. Well, no, he was the one I knew best of all the other candidates. And I also thought that he was on the path to winning, and I wanted to help make him a better candidate. My personality hasn't changed one bit. In the end, and I think you can see from the work that I do in the media today, too, I say what I think. Sometimes it's positive about the president, sometimes it isn't. And when it isn't, he calls. So what are you saying? And I said, well, you're wrong on this one, and I'm going to say you're wrong on this one. And I've told him many times privately when I think he's made a mistake. But when I think he's right, too, I'll go out there and defend what he does. This book was written because I wanted to tell my truth. I wanted to be able to talk, not in the gossipy stuff that you see in a lot of these other books, but unlike all those other people who wrote, I'm in the room for all of this stuff. And you'll see when this book comes out, I don't think you're going to hear any denials from anybody, because what I did was go in there and tell the truth like I always did as governor and as U.S. attorney.
Would you want to be in the room again? Would you want to be part of the administration now?
I've said no to a bunch of jobs in the administration, Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Homeland Security, because it's not something I want to do right now. I mean, I had 16 years in public life. I have 2 more kids to put through college. It might be time to make a little bit of money.